It's on. This one.
Let us stand for prayers, please.
In the name of the Son, and the Father and Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. Lord, make us forth great thankfully. Our
Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil one. In Christ Jesus our Lord, for thine the kingdom, power, the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Donc, bonjour tout le monde. Merci d'être venu aujourd'hui. Commencer par attirer votre attention sur un phénomène de plus en plus présent dans notre société moderne. Alors, c'est l'addiction de l'alcool, au tabac et aux drogues. Nous vivons dans un monde où le stress, la solitude et la recherche constante de performance font partie du quotidien. Face à ces pressions, beaucoup de personnes cherchent à se détendre ou à fuir leurs problèmes en se tournant vers ces substances. Ce comportement, souvent perçu comme sans danger au départ, peut rapidement devenir une véritable dépendance qui touche désormais toutes les générations sans distinction d'âge, de sexe ou de milieu social.
Chez les jeunes, cette expérimentation commence de plus en plus tôt. Selon la statistique au Canada en 2023, l'âge moyen de la première cigarette est de 16 ans, celui de premier verre d'alcool, c'est 18 ans, et celui de la première drogue, c'est 19 ans. Près de 73% des jeunes de 15 à 24 ans affirment avoir consommé de l'alcool au cours de la dernière année, et 14% d'entre eux ont fumé récemment. Chez les adultes, la consommation reste très élevée. Environ 70% consomment de l'alcool régulièrement. 14% continuent de fumer. Enfin, chez les personnes âgées, la fréquence de consommation d'alcool atteint son pic entre 65 et 74 ans, souvent combiné à la prise de médicaments, ce qui augmente considérablement les risques de dépendance et de complications médicales.
Donc, ces chiffres montrent clairement que l'addiction n'est pas un problème isolé. Ce n'est pas seulement une question de volonté ou de choix personnel. Il s'agit d'une véritable maladie qui détruit peu à peu la santé physique, affaiblit la stabilité psychologique et déséquilibre profondément la vie sociale et familiale. Ce qui commence comme une habitude de détendre peut se transformer à une dépendance difficile à briser, marquée par la perte de contrôle, la honte et la souffrance.
C'est pourquoi nous allons nous interroger sur les causes profondes qui poussent les individus vers ces dépendances, les conséquences graves qu'elles entraînent tant sur la santé que sur la société, et enfin les moyens de prévention et de lutte qui peuvent aider à freiner ce fléau et à soutenir les personnes concernées. Merci.
Avant de procéder, j'aime souhaiter la bienvenue à tous ceux qui sont venus de nos églises sœurs, l'église arménienne, représentée par le père Hagop, avec tous les jeunes qui sont venus. Je ne sais pas s'il y a quelqu'un qui est venu de l'église syriaque, mais en tout cas, soyez bienvenus parmi vos frères et sœurs. Et encore une fois, nous sommes tous sur le chemin d'atterrir au ciel. C'est un peu difficile, atterrir, mais au ciel, à la fin. Notre destination finale, à nous tous, c'est d'atteindre notre vie éternelle avec le Seigneur. Alors, on va essayer de profiter de cette soirée et d'échanger entre frères et sœurs des églises sœurs, l'église arménienne et l'église copte. Dieu vous bénisse tous. Merci. Thank you, Father, for coming. Thank you for the youth who came today. We welcome all those who came from the Armenian church. Please feel at home. God bless you all.
are verses and then there are chorus. So try to sing with us the chorus. I know you may not know the hill songs, but try. Yeah. We're doing it for the purpose of praying. So we try to pray all.
you guys hear me? Yeah? Hi. You guys don't mind, I'm just gonna move closer. It's too far. More in my mouth, are you sure? They're gonna hear my voice very loud. There you go. Better? Hi. My name's Fadi. They asked me to come talk about drug and alcohol addiction, inhale prayer and exhale sin. So the first part that we're gonna talk about is maybe a bit more sciencey, but it's important. And I really wanted to talk about the science part for one reason. And the first reason is that when we were created in God's image and likeness, how did he make us? He made us as physical, spiritual, and soulful beings, right? We're all these three things. So everything that happens to you and everything that you do in your life, you can't separate those three things. You cannot pretend that your spiritual life is detached from your physicality or is detached from your mind or from your emotions and vice versa. And anything you do to your body affects everything else. And so the science of how drugs work in the body is important to understand because it also tells us a lot about how we can fight it spiritually and how we can fight it even emotionally and mentally. You guys get what I'm saying? You're a total being, you have to examine everything as being a total being. Let's look at like a little bit the sciencey part. So if you've heard this term before, substance use disorder, I'm sorry, it's gonna be like an eye exam because I didn't realize the screens were small, I thought they would be bigger, but hopefully it's legible. It's another way of saying addiction, okay? It's just a fancier way of saying it or a more scientific way. And what it is a persistent pattern of substance use, and substance you can fill in whatever you want. Alcohol, drugs, smoking, nicotine, and we're gonna go through a bunch of them. When is it a disorder? When it causes significant harm, such as health problems, disability, and failure to meet major responsibilities at work, school, or home. It is characterized by the continued use of a substance despite negative consequences and inability to control one's use. Let's rephrase that. This is the medical way of looking at it, is basically if it causes you a problem, with your every day-to-day life, normal things that you're supposed to do in your day-to-day, you cannot do, that's when medically they'll say you have a substance use disorder. And it's even more so when you try to stop and you know that there's negative consequences, but you can't. So even when you see the negative things in your life and you want to stop, you are unable to. This is a medical definition. It's not necessarily a spiritual one, but this is a medical one, right? Because I would argue, and we're going to talk about it later today or later in this, is there's no real such thing as a good substance use, right? Like substance use in general is not good, but this is when medically they would say, masalan, you need a treatment or there's a severe issue, okay? So this, by the way, actually also works for social addiction. So like most of what we're talking about today is drugs and alcohol, but this actually applies to gambling, this actually applies to pornography, this applies to almost any type of addiction a person can have, right? So what are some symptoms, or how do you notice that either you or someone else might have a problem? So feeling that you have to use a substance regularly, daily, or even several times a day. Having an intense urge to use a substance, and that blocks out other thoughts. It becomes almost obsessive. You're thinking about it a lot. Over time, you need more and more of the substance to get the same effect. And this also does apply to things like gambling and things. That's why people, they increase, right? And we're going to talk about why that happens. And then taking a larger amount of substance over a longer period of time than you intended. So someone either saying, I took more alcohol than I thought I would, or I took more drugs than I thought I would, or I went to harder drugs, or the same thing with gambling. I spent more than I thought I would have, et cetera, et cetera. And the last point is making certain that you maintain a supply of the substance, right? So feeling stressed that you might not be able to get what it is that you're looking for. And this is not exhaustive. These are just warning signs, right? For you and for other people. Just trying to figure out, do I have an issue here? Is there an issue? Other things, not meeting obligations at work and responsibilities. We talked about it before. Cutting back on social or recreational activities because of substance use. You're sacrificing stuff, even stuff you normally used to like to do, to make sure that you can get this substance or to make sure that you can beat this addiction. This is the important one. Continuing to use the substance even though you know it's causing problems in your life. Harm. Doing things to get the substance that you wouldn't normally do. Common one. The addiction gets worse. You do stuff you never thought you would do. You steal in order to get money to buy what you need. Or you lie to people that you love. Or you deceive people, et cetera, et cetera. You're doing things that are outside of the norm. Risky behaviors. Driving or doing other risky activities when you're under the influence of the substance, and failing in your attempts to stop using the substance. And the final one, and again, like I said, this is not exhaustive, you don't need to have all of these, these are just to give you an idea. Experiencing withdrawal symptoms when you attempt to stop taking the drug. When you stop, you have some sort of withdrawal. And we won't talk about withdrawal today, but There's many different types of withdrawal depending on the type of drug or the type of substance that you use. Some of them can actually be very deadly. Some of them can just be very unpleasant, but there's generally a withdrawal symptom. The first question I have for you, who do you think is most at risk for a type of substance use disorder or an addiction, either alcohol, drugs, or whatever? So how can I put it? What age group, let's say? What do you guys think? Anyone throw something out there. 16 to 25? Sorry, what did you say? Starts 10, 12. So you're actually both kind of right. And I want to start by explaining something to do with the brain. So this is your prefrontal cortex. Okay, it sounds very scientific-y, but basically it's the front part of your brain. And what does this front part of your brain do? It's what's responsible for what we call executive functions, like your higher thinking, what makes almost a human, right? Is planning, prioritizing, making good decisions, and setting goals. It's also very important in controlling your behavior. It's what tells you, if I do this, I will have consequences, I should probably not do this, right? It's that part of your brain that helps you think that way. Self-control, limiting risky behavior. It's also the part of your brain that's involved, like solving a complex problem, thinking about things that are very, complex, staying focused, your adjustment patterns, all that stuff. And last thing is it's very important for integrating new information, right? So it's how you can take in new information and kind of absorb it and use it in your world. So if I ask you, at what age does the prefrontal cortex fully develop? How many of you would say between 12 to 14? 15 to 18? Okay, one. 18 to 21? Okay, how many people think 22 to 23 is when your brain fully develops? If I lie to all of you, it's around 25. 25 to 28 is actually what they say now, the brain fully develops. Most people 25, differences between men and women, some people it's earlier, some people it's later, but around that age is when your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that judges risk, that helps you make good decisions, that keeps you from doing stupid things, develop. Okay? And here you have a diagram. So at the beginning is actually around 5 or 6. The more there's blue, the more it's developed. In the middle is around 14, and the latter one, where it's mostly blue, is around 22 to 25, okay, depending on the person. So that answers a bit this question is, what age group is most at risk? It's actually the 18 to 25, right? And you're right, when you said it starts at 12, you'll see there's a little thing at 12. It's less, not because they are less risky or they make smarter decisions, it's because generally you're more protected at that age. You have family, you don't have a lot of money, your movements are controlled, where you go is controlled, so it's harder for people to fall into substance abuse at a younger age. When you hit 18 and you start being more independent and you start having your own money and you start working and you start making your own decisions and your parents are not paying attention to you as much, that's when it kind of peaks and then it slowly goes down. It's interesting that it goes down because actually that means that the older you get, the wiser you get, and actually the more disposable income you have. So actually the easier it is for you to afford all this stuff is when you actually use it less. That kind of tells you what it is about that age that causes an issue. Is it's not the fact that drugs are good or they're great and that everyone should use them. It's more of the fact of that when you're younger, you kind of don't think about the long-term consequences. You're not thinking about it properly. People tend to do it. And then as they get older, and it's actually easier for them to get drugs or to use alcohol, is when it naturally starts dying down because people say, I don't want to do this, right? You guys get what I'm trying to say? So in the sense of, there's a big problem around that age. So the main issue that younger people have, which puts them more at risk, is that they underestimate how bad or how risky drug and alcohol use could be. So I put here 2 verses, if it changes. There's the way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. That's Proverbs. And it's, listen, my child, when your father shows you what is right, and do not forget what your mother has taught you. Their teaching will bring you honor like a beautiful crown or a valuable necklace. God's trying to tell us 2 very important things here. First thing is, there's a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. You cannot trust always what you think. Okay, this is the base of Christianity, right? Is you cannot come and say, just because I think something to be right, and I think something to be true, or I think something's okay, it is. Because I have my brain, and my brain is great, and I trust myself. No, God is always saying, there's a way that might seem perfect to you, that might make total sense, that for you, you sit there, you've analyzed it, your prefrontal cortex, God bless you, you have the best prefrontal cortex, you make the best decision. But in the end, it could be totally wrong. We judge by what God says, not by what we say, or not by the mood of the time or the thing of the time, right? Same thing with the other one is, when we're 85 or even older, why did God give us parents? Why do we give us parents? Because we develop. Because when we're young, we don't have a fully developed prefrontal cortex, can't really think properly for ourselves. We need guidance. In fact, we need guidance our whole lives, but especially in that brain is growing and that it doesn't function fully properly is the most important time where it is important to listen to the people that care about us, who are older and wiser, because they have more experience and they have that developed prefrontal cortex. So God is telling us, actually it's more explicit here, children, obey your parents in the Lord. And by the way, he says, obey your parents in the Lord, which also means our priests, our servants, things like that. For this is right. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you and you may live long in the land. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Let's take it bit by bit. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you and that you may live long in the land. So what's the promise if you obey your father and your mother as a child? It's not a trick question, huh? Yeah, you will live long. Actually, not just live long, that it will go well with you and you may live long in the land. He's telling you as a youth, listen to your parents, trust me, God, say. Because if you do, you will generally have a better life and you will go well and you will live long in this land. And it's actually a promise, right? He says, oh, do this and you will get this. And then he says something very important for parents. He says, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. So saying as parents, or as people that have younger siblings or whatever, where's our source of what we're supposed to be teaching? What are we bringing them up in? My opinion, what I did when I was younger, or in the discipline and instruction of the Lord? As parents, as adults, as older people, we're supposed to take from God, and what God gives us, we give to the younger people and teach them that, and show them that, and live that ourselves so that they see that in us, right? Again, God's setting up the pyramid. God at the top, and parents have a responsibility to know God and to have God passed on, and children have a responsibility to listen to their parents who are in Christ, etc. Okay? So, if I was to ask you guys, what is the drugs or substance, let's say, that people are most commonly addicted to? What do you think is the first one in terms of prevalence, the amount of people? So I'm talking more about drugs and alcohol in this one, but behavioral, probably that would be up at the top of the list. Sorry? Marijuana, it's actually not the most, but it's one of the top. Anyone else? Nicotine, almost. Alcohol, actually, is the number one. So alcohol, beer and wine is actually the one that's most in terms of prevalence. Then follows nicotine. Then actually cannabis, whether it's pot or edibles or things like that. The next one is opioids. So opioids, I include like even prescription opioids, like morphine and things like that, and as well other types like morphine. Then comes cocaine, and cocaine and methamphetamines are about the same. And we're not going to go into one by one, but we're going to talk about it. I have a question for you guys. Why do you guys think alcohol is the most addictive one? Or the most addictive one, but the one that there's the most people addicted to? The easiest, that's one of the points, right? So the first one that you kind of said, legal and social acceptance, is if you start drinking in front of people here in the West, let's say, no one will bat an eye. It's perfectly considered normal, fine, whatever. If you pull out a crack pipe, you'll get looks. But you won't get looks with a glass of wine or whatever. And then what you said, the second thing is accessibility. You can walk in anywhere and get a drink. You can walk into a dépanneur, a couche-tard, and find something alcoholic at like 2 in the morning if you really wanted to. The third is the actual effects of it, right? Is that it relaxes, it gives a sense, it can give a sense of euphoria. The fourth, and this is actually one of the ones that we were talking about earlier about the age thing, is people tend to get exposed to it very early. It's very rare to meet a 15 or a 14-year-old that's seen hash or cocaine. Very rare to meet a 15 or 14-year-old in this country that has not seen booze or seen some type of alcohol, right? Is you're exposed to it very early. And the fifth point is a misconception about safety. The fact that it's legal, the fact that actually in Quebec, the government is the one that sells it to you. You have to go to the SAC to get it, is a way of kind of giving you the feeling of, oh, can't be that bad. The government is, hey, it's paying for schools. You know, the government is the one that sells it to me. And then 6 is cultural marketing, right? Just the fact that you actually have ads on TV for beer and alcohol. I don't know if you ever noticed this, it's an interesting fact. Did you know that in Canada, you're not allowed to actually show people drinking the alcohol on an ad for a drink? So I don't know if you ever noticed, next time you see an ad for beer or wine or whatever, they never actually take a sip, you're not allowed to show it. So all of the ads try to sell you a kind of lifestyle. People on the beach, having fun, by the water, a nice evening with your family or whatever, it's chic, it's nice. it's always trying to sell you a mood because they can't actually just show you someone drinking and say, oh, it tastes good. They don't do that, right? It's always trying to sell you a kind of vibe, right? And then the last one is neurobiological reinforcement, which is what we're going to talk about now, which is that alcohol hijacks the reward system, right? And the point is that this is similar to other types of drugs, right? They all hijack some sort of reward system. So, how do we get addicted? Okay? Or how does someone get addicted? And by the way, the same thing applies, again, to social media, to gambling, to pornography, etc. So this is the second thing we want to meet. This is dopamine. You've probably heard about it before, and if you're a bit older, you know how we used to say things are really dope back in the time, is we used to say things are dope because it comes from dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that goes in your brain. Okay? It's something important. And what does it do? It's the part of your brain and what your brain releases in the reward system. So it regulates reward, motivation, and here's the most important one, reinforcement. It's the part that tells your body says, this was good, do it again. This was good, do it again. This was good, do it again. Okay? And your body uses dopamine normally in the following types of things, right? So when you achieve a goal, you know, when you've done something, you're like, I did it, like, oh, happy. That's a dopamine, right? When you learn something new and you feel a sense of accomplishment, right? Actually, when you pray and when you read your Bible, there is a dopamine release. When you exercise, especially if you do cardio, when you eat something enjoyable, right? When you spend time with loved ones or you have positive social interactions, you know, when you have like a good time with friends and you kind of feel that little boost, that's also a dopamine hit. Acts of kindness, when you do creative activities, if you sleep enough, if you get enough sunlight exposure, these are things that your body is trying to get you to encourage, right? It's trying to say, this is good, let me release dopamine. It reinforces this behavior. You exercise, you feel good, you should exercise again. Hey, you achieved the goal of yours, it feels good, you should do this again, etc., etc. So the problem with drugs and alcohol is that they hijack that whole system. Okay, they basically take the dopamine system and they go nuts with it. So let's go through it step by step how it happens, because it's important to understand. Is the first thing you do is you take something. So drugs, alcohol, or you start some sort of sinful or harmful behavior. So I use the examples here of gambling and pornography. So the substance or the behavior that you do ends up causing a large release of dopamine, and one that's much larger than something you get from a natural behavior, like let's say eating or social interaction. We'll have a little picture, hopefully it shows up well. Is on the left, the little orange dots are like the type of dopamine you get from food, and on the right is the type of dopamine you get from cocaine. So you can see it's like hugely different and hugely magnified. You overwhelm your brain with dopamine, that's the kind of high that you get, okay? So the issue is, this large amount of dopamine teaches your brain to desire and seek out this behavior. Because it's like, wow, I got this huge high, I got this huge rush, I might want to repeat this. And the issue is, as you use the substance more often, your brain starts to freak out a little. Okay, and I'll explain to you what I mean by freak out. Is it starts to desensitize itself to the dopamine because there's just too much. I'll give you an example. So you know when you live with someone who nags a lot? Is in the end, you just tune them out, right? It's the na 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 na, and then you just, okay, yeah, whatever. Oh, thanks, right? It's a bit the same way. Is there's so much dopamine, and it's so much higher than what you should normally get, that your brain actually deregulates the receptors. It starts saying, I'm going to start reacting to this less, because if not, something's going to happen. I just got to do less, and tune it out. So what happens then is your body becomes less reactive to dopamine to protect itself. So what do you think happens when your body becomes less reactive to dopamine? Sorry? You feel bad. Yeah, exactly. You don't feel as good. And in fact, you want more to get the same feeling, right? So your mood starts to decrease. And even the normal things in life that you used to take pleasure in, there's not enough dopamine to give you that kind of feeling. Give you that. That's why I find people that become addicts or use drugs, oftentimes you'll find them very anhedonic. Like when they're not on drugs, they're kind of like, oh, life stuff. Everything's horrible. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Even the things I used to do that I used to take pleasure in. I used to play sports. I don't want to play sports anymore. It doesn't give me the rush. I used to eat nice food, spend time with friends. Ils reculent. They stop doing all these things because they've desensitized their brain. It doesn't, normal life is not good enough, in quotation marks, for them anymore. And not only that, but the same amount of substance, whatever it was, if it was a beer a day or a bottle of wine a day, no longer gives you the same effect that it did because your body is desensitized. Right? Same thing, by the way, with like social things. Like if it's social media or gambling, I used to get a really good rush when I'd bet $5. Now it's not there anymore. I've got to make it 15. Now I got to, oh, that was 1,000. Now it's 2,000. You know, because before 1,000 would give me a rush, now no. Same thing with pornography. It was this or that. Now it has to be more extreme or more intense or more things. Same thing with drugs, is it just goes more and more and more. So the same amount of drugs, gambling, alcohol, porn no longer gives you the same dopamine rush because your brain has become desensitized. So what happens? Your body starts craving dopamine, it pushes you to consume more. And the problem is that you're doing that just to feel normal, not even to feel necessarily good anymore. If you want to feel good, you actually have to take even more. And the problem with that is, even if your body gets used to the dopamine that something gives you, it doesn't get used to the other stuff it does. So, like you all have seen like those things when you watch Vancouver or whatever, people that OD on the street. So for example, when you tend to overdose from, let's say, an opioid, it makes you stop breathing. It's literally one of the things that morphine causes, is when you take too much of it, it suppresses your breathing, you stop breathing. You literally, what's what I'm looking for? It's almost like you drown to death in normal air. So why does that happen? Because as you're increasing the dose just to get that dopamine hit, it still suppresses your breathing. Your body doesn't get used to that, you know? And it doesn't get used to it as well. So if you take too much, you stop breathing. That's why they inject you with naloxone. And like it reverses that. So it's a way of saying this is why people die from overdoses. This is why people drink themselves into oblivion, is because the other negative effects are there and get amplified the more you use, even if you don't feel good. Even if you're just using it to maintain your base level of normal existence, it's still destroying you from the inside because you're taking a lot of something you're not supposed to, right? So ironically, and this is the important part, right, is the very thing that people initially use to try and improve their mood or give themselves a rush becomes the very thing that makes it harder and harder to have a good mood and to just be content and kind of have a sense of peace and joy, right? So you increase your consumption, and we talked about this, just to try and feel normal. This is talking about the risks that people will end up going to. Why is that important? Is again, like I mentioned before, is as you kind of end in this vicious cycle and this kind of spiral, now if you stop, you don't even feel particularly good, right? So the issue is you end up needing more and more and more, like we talked about. But to get more and more and more, you usually end up having to do risky behavior. That's why a lot of people end up having financial trouble, or they end up stealing, or they end up doing other things, because if before I was fine with a certain amount of marijuana, or was fine with a certain amount of opioids, and now I need double or triple, I have to do more and more things to get that double and triple amount. And there is a risk, especially, we talked about the 18 to 25, but that age group especially, there's a big risk. And we talked about it when we talked about neuroplasticity. So I used an example here on the left, is you have a pot. So not a pot, that's what I'm looking for, like a clay pot. You guys remember when you were kids and you did like art class or whatever, and they made you do clay pots? How do you make a clay pot? You mold it, you make it the shape you want, you throw it in the oven, you bake it, it comes out, it's hard as a rock, okay? That's your brain and the part that we call neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is how your brain adapts. So when you're a kid and you're learning to walk, that's neuroplasticity. When you fall and you get up, you fall, you get up and you learn balance, neuroplasticity. When you're learning a language, neuroplasticity. Your brain is forming new connections to teach you and to learn and to solidify how to do something. Like we know they say it's like riding a bike, you never forget it because of this. When you're a kid, you learn to ride a bike, your brain made the connection, this is how I ride a bike, stays with you for the rest of your life. As we said, your brain stops forming at around 25. That's when you almost take the pot and you throw it in the oven and you bake it. So if at a young age, any age younger than 25 technically, but especially like the time when your brain's developing, I start messing with it. I start taking drugs. I start taking alcohol. I get myself used to addictive behaviors. What am I doing? My brain is learning, this is good, me like. And then comes 24, 25, I pop that in the oven and it bakes in, and now my brain has developed over the years and it has this pathway where this is a temptation for me. This is something that I want. This is something that I crave. It's not irreversible. It is reversible, but it becomes way more harder because while your brain was developing, you taught it. Just before it got thrown in the oven and set, you made that an important part of your brain's wiring and an important part of how you learn to experience dopamine or I don't say joy, but dopamine or good feelings or things like that. You guys get what I'm trying to say with it? is you're kind of breaking something just before you throw it in the kiln. And once it's in the kiln, that's it. It's no longer pliable like it was before. It's set, right? And this, by the way, again, because I know, like, let's say, for example, teenagers or whatever, maybe it's not as much drugs or alcohol, but social thing, social media, gambling, pornography, it's the exact same thing. Is you're teaching your brain this, and then when it sets, it becomes a lot harder afterwards to break that connection that your brain has. So what happens when you abuse alcohol? Okay, so these are certain things that happen, right? So cancer, liver, breast, throat, stomach. The most common one actually is liver disease. So your liver cirrhosis is when your liver basically starts dying and it gradually wastes away. And you should, like, honestly, when you reach this point, is the amount of medications you need, the follow-up you need is, you usually need like a liver transplant. It's a very heavy disease. You end up having cardiovascular problems. And the ironic part is it increases your risk of mental health conditions, which is anxiety and depression. Why do I say ironic? Because a lot of people use alcohol to calm, and actually most drugs, to calm their anxiety. The ironic thing with alcohol and marijuana is even though it calms you in the moment, it actually increases your anxiety and your depression long term. It's again one of those things where the thing you're trying to use to help you actually makes it 10 times worse, the problem. You don't realize it because you say, oh, the second I took the drink, life was good, everyone was happy, I was happy. This. But what you don't realize is the long-term effect is actually it increases your general state of anxiety, it increases your general state of depression, which again leads you back into that vicious cycle of needing more. Now I'm more anxious. What did I teach myself to use to get over my anxiety? Booze. I need more booze. But it makes me more anxious, and then et cetera, right? We end up back in that vicious cycle. And last thing is could also be reproductive issues like infertility or erectile. What does the Bible say about alcohol? Who endures misery, or who endures remorse? Who has strife and who has anxiety? Who becomes bruised without knowing the reason, and who has blackened eyes? Those who linger over their wine too long, those who sample blended wine. And by the way, blended wine is the way of seeing people that like basically mixology. You know, like back in the day, if they wanted to have a nice drink, now you get, I don't know, some sort of cocktail. There they'd be like, oh, we want a new wine, let's mix a bunch of them together, we get a fancy new taste. Saying people that take too much pleasure into this. Do not note how red the wine is and how it sparkles in the cup, and how smoothly it goes down. For in the end, its bite is like that of a serpent or that of a poisonous viper. It's very important here because this applies to all drugs, right? We're using alcohol because it's what the Bible's talking about, but it's the deception of its appearance and what you think it'll do for you versus what it actually does for you, right? Is don't look at its pretty color, how it sparkles in the cup, and how when you drink it, it feels smooth going down. Because what happens in the end, its bite is like that of a serpent or that of a poisonous viper. It's going to kill you. It's slowly but surely poisoning you. Then your eyes will behold strange sights, and your heart will utter distorted words. You will become like one sleeping at sea or clinging to the top of the mast. You will say, they struck me, but I was not hurt. They beat me, and I did not feel it. That verse there, 35, is basically saying is, you almost become desensitized. You're like, oh, it's like someone hit me and I didn't even know about it. When this happened? When will I awaken so that I can seek another drink? I fall back into the cycle. You wake up, you're like, oh, that was pretty bad. Where's my next drink? And we continue and we continue. Pardon this emoji, I just put this because the next picture is a bit disgusting, so if you are easily disgusted, don't look. But it's just to show visually what are some of the consequences, for example, of alcohol use. So on the left is you have a normal liver, and on the right, that's what it's supposed to be, and on the right, you have a liver that is cirrhotic, which is basically wasted away because of alcohol. Marijuana consequences. And this is actually a big one because people, especially a lot of young people, tend to think that marijuana has very few consequences, but it actually has a lot. So one is short-term memory, impairment, bad decision-making, that we know. Increases anxiety and depression, like we said about alcohol. This is the scarier one, and actually one that people don't know about mostly, is psychosis. Psychosis, basically becoming schizophrenic, having a psychotic episode. You know, like the people you see downtown who are talking to themselves, yelling at the sidewalk, yelling at whatever. That's psychosis, right? So high-potency cannabis especially, and early use, so the younger you use it, increases the risk of psychotic symptoms or schizophrenia. And actually, I'll say it the next slide. And so the adolescent impact, like we talked about before, is also very important. Is if you're doing this while your brain is developing, and this happens to you while your brain is developing, and then I throw it in the oven, that's it. It's set for life. You're going to have these symptoms for the rest of your life, right? You could be on antipsychotics for the rest of your life because of something that happened when you were a teenager or the abuse that you did as a teenager, right? And actually, most people don't know, but cannabis use is the major cause of psychosis and schizophrenia for people aged 25 and under. So actually, like, I don't know, like I work in the West Island in a St. Anne's Hospital, and we, in our same studios, we have the Douglas, which is the Mental Health Institute. You might have heard of Douglas. It's actually for people, young people that come in with psychotic episodes. Marijuana use is the main cause, the most common reason that they'll be hospitalized for. It also exists with other things like cocaine and methamphetamines, but like I said, marijuana, because more people use it and it's more common, it's what we see more. And then there's other drugs like cocaine and methamphetamines that cause also memory, decision-making issues. Cocaine especially causes a lot of heart issues. I'm not going to go too much into this because it's things that we see kind of less. Again, same thing, a little bit disgusting, but this is like the heart of someone. Left is normal. Right is when you use cocaine, people don't think it affects the body. You notice that the heart is a lot thicker. It's not good. It's not the type of thing that you want. Like, you think a thicker muscle is a better muscle? Not for the heart. When it's thick, it can't fill with blood. It doesn't pump very well. So you end up being like a person who's a 90-year-old. And actually, when I used to work downtown, we used to have a lot of like methadone patients and things like that. They'll come in and they walk like 2 meters and they're already panting, even though they're in like their mid to late 20s. They've just destroyed their heart. They're 30 years old, but they have the heart of someone who's 95 and has congestive heart failure at a young age, right? This also one is a bit problematic. This is showing people on methamphetamine and how they kind of develop as they go through their age, right? So this, for example, on the left is someone on the bottom right who's like 23, and then you see him hit 25, and then what happens to him? And you notice, like, the skin wears away, the teeth wear away. They usually end up losing eating a lot less. They end up being very gaunt, like they're starved to death. And it happens very quickly with a lot of the harder drugs, like cocaine and methamphetamines and things like that. And the last one is the worst. So the reason I wanted to put this is something that you might not have heard of, but it's more common in the US than it is here. It's something called crocodile, something that people inject. The thing is, when you inject it, it actually causes your skin to start wasting away. So one of the things that it can cause is these types of like ulcers on your legs, and these are actually not the worst pictures, they're just the ones I thought that would like pass best. So I want to ask you a question. Why am I showing these pictures? Is it just to gross you out? What's the point of knowing this? What do you guys think? Why is it important to kind of see this? And the kitchen people are looking at me badly because no one's going to eat after this. What I wanted to show was how much drugs push people eventually, and addiction push people eventually to do things that make no sense and that you and I, all of us would say is absolutely crazy, but that's what it pushes you eventually to do. Like the meth photos that I put, those were not so that you could say, oh, look at those people. It's actually to say, like, these are ordinary people. But when they got addicted, when they permitted themselves to get addicted, look at what it can push you to do, to the point where you know that this is a risk, that you're injecting yourself with something and your skin will melt away, but you don't care anymore. You care more about running for the high, and you're willing to take this risk, and that's what it can do to you. Proverbs 7:26-27. This is about lust, but it also applies as well for drugs and any type of addiction. For she has cast down many wounded, and all who were slain by her were strong men. Her house is the way to hell, descending to the chambers of death. Talking about how it's not necessarily just weak people. You can't sit here and say, oh, okay, I'm a strong person, I'm strong-willed, I'll never fall to drug and alcohol addiction. If that's your mindset, you're probably going to be the first one, right? If your mindset is that, I'm the last person that's going to happen to. Because let me tell you, especially when I used to work downtown, you would be surprised how many CEOs of super big companies are coming in for methadone. Even though they're the highest poets of, they're very successful businessmen, very wealthy, walking around in a suit and tie downtown. They have self-control. But they're coming in because they got addicted to cocaine, right? Or heroin or whatever. So it's not, all who were slain by her were strong men. It's not about strength. If you think it's about strength, you've already lost the battle, right? Ephesians, look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time, because the days are evil, right? The days we live in are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. And do not get drunk with wine, for that is debauchery, but be filled with the Spirit. We live in a world, where there's lots of different things. And God is telling you, don't be foolish. Know the world around you. Know the evils that exist in the world around you. do not be drunk with wine. How do you protect yourself from being drunk with wine or drugs or whatever? Be filled with the Spirit. Be filled with the Spirit. And we're going to talk more about now. Next point, your life is worth something. For you were bought at a price, therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God. Why is it important that I say your life is worth it? Because especially sometimes when we're younger, we don't realize that our life is worth it. And we're willing to gamble a lot of our life and a lot of our quality of life away for very foolish and stupid things. But God is here trying to remind us and saying, your life is so precious that I sacrificed my only son that you may live. What do you want to do with that life? It's up to you. But what do you want to do? It's very precious. It's so precious, I sacrificed my own son. So even if you don't realize it's precious, I'm telling you now, it's pretty precious. The example I like to give is, imagine you're like a 4-year-old and I give you a check for $1 million. You're 4. You have no idea what that is. You'll probably rip it, you'll draw cartoon characters on it, and then you'll probably lose it. Does that mean that the $1 million wasn't worth anything? You're going to be 20 years old and kicking yourself. I could have bought a car, could have done this, could have done that. Sometimes it's the same with us when we're younger, right? Is we think, marijuana, who cares? Booze, who cares? Try it once, try it twice. Because you don't realize how precious your life is, how easy it is to lose the important things of your life, and that your life is really worth something. It's a bit the same concept, right? Is you were bought at a price, even if you don't realize it, remember, your life is worth something. The prudent sees danger and hides himself, avoids it. But the simple go on and suffer for it. Simple is a nice way of saying stupid. God is telling you, being stupid, it means you just keep on going towards the danger, right? And you're going to suffer for it. The prudent is the person who realizes that they are weak and hides from it, right? So what is God's counsel for us? Or what does God tell us? This is all from Mark chapter 9. But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea. If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. It is better for you to go into life maimed rather than having 2 hands, to go to hell into the fire that shall never be quenched, where their worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. We're going to read through the part and then we're going to talk about why this is important. And if your foot causes you to sin, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life lame rather than having 2 feet, to be cast into hell into the fire that shall never be quenched, where their worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. And finally, and if your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out. It is better for you to enter the kingdom of God with 1 eye, rather than having 2 eyes, and to be cast into fire, hellfire, where their worm does not die and the fire is not. So again, we've heard this before. I'm sure you guys have heard it before in church. As he's saying, something causes you to sin, cut it off. Even if it's as precious as your eye, your hand, or your foot, get rid of it. What's with the worm and the fire? So it's an interesting concept. God is telling us something, and I find this is very pertinent to chronic sins like addiction. Okay, this is hell. Okay, and you might notice the word, especially if you speak Arabic. The Greek word is Gehenna. The Hebrew word is Gehinnom or Johannam in Arabic, right? It's actually a place. Gehenna was a place outside Jerusalem, a little valley, where they would throw all their garbage, all the dead bodies, all the carcasses of animals, and they'd burn them, and it would constantly burn. That's how they got rid of their garbage. They didn't have waste management or whatever. They would just throw it in that valley and set it on fire. And so it was a place that was known for, it's always on fire, and it always smells like burning carcass. So for them, that was what they talked about when they wanted to talk about hell. Is if you can imagine the worst place, they're like, oh, it's like that place, where it's always burning, and it always smells like dead carcass. So what is it about? The worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. He's talking about what it's like when you live in sin. Or what it's like, especially if you live with an addiction, is number 1, their worm does not die. You know what he's talking about? He's talking about when someone dies and the maggots start eating their flesh. Very nasty, but it's a visual important that's important to us. So it's like something is eating at you constantly. Something is eating away at you from the inside nonstop. And it never dies. It just doesn't go away. That's why it's your worm. When it says their worm, it's the one that you brought onto yourself home, right? So it's saying it's something that's constantly eating away at you, and it's like a fire that just never wants to get put out. And that's the thing with addiction, right? Is it's one of the hardest things because it's the thing that follows you around wherever you go because it's in you. It's not something you can avoid. It's not something you could just take out of you and say, oh, there you go, put it there. Right? It's not an annoying relative that you just don't invite over for Christmas. It's with you all the time. And no matter where you go, it's there. You change countries, it's there. You move states, it's there. You go on vacation, it's there. Wherever you are, it's there, right? So it's like a worm that doesn't die, that's eating you constantly, and a fire that isn't quenched. And this is the thing that I think we need to realize a lot more, if we're young, think about, and also explain to the youth is, right, is when this thing, it makes you a prisoner of yourself. You cannot run away from it. That's the issue. You cannot run away from yourself, and it's always with you wherever you go. And it comes in a nice packaging. Oftentimes it's through friends, oftentimes it's through people that you trust, or things like that. So it looks very innocent on the outside, but in the end, it's like a worm that's never going to leave you alone. So this leads to the next point, which I think we can think about or maybe meditate on is, why does God give us commandments? Answer is right there. Actually, here, let me do this. Why does God give us a commandment? What do you guys think? It's important to help us. Is that what everyone thinks? What do some people think? To restrain or to control, right? Especially when you're younger, like, God's no fun. He doesn't want us to enjoy ourselves. This is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is the point. But if we have that mentality, we're going to fall into a lot of trouble, right? Because we're misunderstanding God's purpose, right? God's commandments are a source of love. It's like a loving father who created humanity. He knows how you work. He knows how you work better than you know. He knows what will harm you better than you know. Giving you wisdom as his son, as his daughter. And God's greatest desire is for us to live. And so his commandments and his precepts are a guide for us to live fruitful, happy, and successful life. Why am I saying? Because if we start thinking that I'm going to try these things because I want to try, or I'm going to do these things because it's interesting to give them a shot, and forget what God says, because God is about control, you're going to get yourself into a lot of trouble, because you're misunderstanding what God is doing. God has given you freedom from the beginning. God is all about free will. But God also gives you advice, and out of love, looks for your self-interest. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. God is saying, what I want for you is the best. And I'm telling you these things, like avoid alcohol, avoid drugs, the 10 Commandments and the other things, not because I want to control what you do, or not because I want to give you a difficult time, but because I'm telling you, I made you, and these are the things that protect you and will give you a quality of life. These are the things that are necessary. You are free to do what you want. But I know you, I love you, I'm telling you this is the best thing. And we have to get that in our mind. This is a message of love, and it's a message of care. It's not a message of control. And especially, the reason I'm bringing that up is because when we're younger, that tends to be how we see things. It's about control and limit. It's not about control. God already gave you free will. If he wanted to control and limit you, he wouldn't have given you free will. He gave you free will. But it's about trusting that he has your interest and that he knows better, right? And so he gives us the two sides of it. John 10:10. The thief does not come except to steal and to kill and to destroy. I have come that they may have life and that they may have it more abundantly. Bring the two sides. He's saying you have options. The devil is there also, but he seeks out one thing. He seeks your destruction. He's there to steal and to control. But my joy, like what God wants for us, is that we may have life, and not just have life, very nice, abundantly, more than you could even imagine, more than you want, but it's up to you. I won't force it on you, but that's what he wants for us. 1 Peter, be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. What's the devil's job? He wants to do the worst thing. He wants to bring you down. He wants to squeeze you so there's nothing left to be squeezed. God is the exact. He wants to free you. And not only that, he wants you to have life abundantly, like super generous, more than you even want. Beloved, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to abstain from the passions of the flesh which war against your soul. And what are these passions? Now, the works of the flesh are evident: sexual immorality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries, dissensions, divisions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and things like these. I warn you, as I warned you before, that those who do such things will not inherit the kingdom of God, right? Again, it's not a thing to try and make you feel bad, to try and control you. He's saying, if you do these things, you will end up in hell. And I got news for you, you'll end up in hell here. That's why I talked about Gehenna. Hell is not something that you only experience when you die. Hell is something that you start experiencing here. I can tell you, people that are addicted, they're in hell. That thing eating away at you, that constant fire that doesn't leave you, You can start feeling that type of hell right here. It doesn't have to be. Just like you can experience heaven here, you can also experience hell. So God is saying the two exist, right? So these things, avoid them. Why? Because if you come closer to God and you avoid these things, you will feel like you're in heaven. If you live these things out of your own doing, you'll end up in hell, here and there. Submit yourselves therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. God can help us, and I've been like really bad at it, people. God can help at any point, right? No temptation has overtaken you except that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability, but with temptation, he will also provide the way of escape that you may be able to endure it. Therefore, my beloved, flee from idolatry. What is he saying here? Saying, first of all, because this is something that when people get addicted, they often think is, I'm beyond hope. I tried so many times, can't get any better. He's making a very important point here where he's saying, you can never be tempted beyond what you are able. God is able to overcome any temptation and overcome any consequence of what you've done as long as you turn to him. And he says something beautiful. God is faithful, not you. Meaning what? It doesn't depend on you. God is faithful. God is faithful because he's God. God cannot be not faithful because God is God. And God cannot be God. Not be God. Right? That was very confusing, but you know what I mean. Right? God has to imbibe his characteristics, and he is faithful. So, the good news is he is faithful. He promised you freedom. If you turn to him, then you turn to him and you get freedom. It doesn't depend on you. For God gave us the spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed, right? So God tells us the truth, which sets us free, helps us see clearly, and gives us wisdom, right? So basically, God became man so that man could become like God. That's his wish for us. What does the devil do? The devil lies and deceives by giving you something, a poisoned fruit, that looks really good from the outside, when you judge it from the outside, but on the inside is death, right? And his end goal is your destruction and misery. Like we say in the Mass, and death which entered into the world through the envy of the devil. That's very important because, and it's important when we're young, it's important when we're old, is what the thing that's coming to me, where is this coming from? Forget what it looks like. It might look good, it might look bad. Sometimes we get things from God that from the outside disturb us, or they look like they might be bad, and then they end up being amazing. And sometimes we get things from outside that look very, very nice and look very, very tempting. And then when we get into them, it's horrible. It's the worst experience we've ever had. So where is the origin of this? If this thing is from the devil, just run. Even if it looks nice, even if it's coming to you from a very nice person and someone you trust, and even if it looks very tempting and ChatGPT tells you you'll be fine, ignore it. If you know this is not from God, it's coming from the devil, and you know what his end goal is. His end goal is not good. And vice versa. If something comes to you from God, like the church fathers taught us, even if it's difficult, if it's from God, accept it is for good. All things work together for good for those who love God, for those who are called according to his purpose. Right? So don't judge by the exterior or the look of the fruit. Judge by who's giving it to you. It's coming from a bad source. It's coming from the devil. If it's not good, doesn't matter if you think otherwise, run. Coming from God, accept. See, I have set before you today life and good, death and evil. And that I command you today to love the Lord your God, to walk in his ways and to keep his commandments, his statutes, and his judgments, that you may live and multiply, and the Lord your God will bless you in the land which you possess. But if your heart turns away so that you do not hear, and are drawn away and worship other gods, and let me tell you, when someone's addicted, it is a god for them, like a little g god, and serve them, I announce to you today that you will surely perish. You shall not prolong your days in the land which you cross over to the Jordan to go and possess. I call heaven and earth as witnesses today against you that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore, choose life, that both you and your descendants may live. Right? This is what he said to the people of Israel, right? Before they went, he said, choose life. That you have free choice. But please choose life, right? Don't choose the path of death. That you may love the Lord your God, and that you may obey his voice, and that you may cling to him. For he is your life and the length of your days, and that you may dwell in the land which the Lord swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. For he is your life and the length of your days. He is your life and the length of your days. You want life and to have it abundantly, it only comes from one source. And there's no two ifs, ands, or buts. There's only two ways. They didn't say there's seven. There's two. Life or death. So what can we, almost done, what can we say as tips or things to keep in mind? Number one, this is more for prevention and also for people that are addicted, is the void. And I'm talking about the inner void, right, that puts people at risk. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity in their heart. He made you, and he made you to live forever, and he made you to know him. Very clear in Acts, right, where St. Paul said, and he has made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on all the face of the earth, and has determined their pre-appointed times and boundaries of their dwelling, so that they should seek the Lord in hope, that they might grope for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being. As also some of your own poets have said, for we are also his offspring. You are made in the image and likeness of God. If you do not have God in your life, there will be a void. And this void people fill with everything under the sun. It could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be pride, it could be money, it could be any number of things. But that void only gets filled with God. If you try to fill it with anything else, just like the Samaritan woman, right? You will always come back thirsty. You will never find that living water that satisfies. And that's why a lot of people fall into addiction. That's especially why it happens at a younger age as well. Because that's when you especially start to feel the void. When you're 12, 13, give you a Pokemon card and you're good for a week, right? You're older and you're like, man, this is life. This is a lot of stress in here, you know? This is difficult. Not as easy as I thought it was, you know? Pokemon cards don't do it anymore, right? That's when people start crying. So if they don't turn to the right thing, they're going to turn and try to fill that void with something else. What else can contribute, right? Peer pressure or having the wrong group of friends. Do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals. I love that he starts it with do not be deceived, meaning he already knows ahead of time that half of us will be like, I'm good, I'm strong. I can have whatever friends I have. They won't affect me. I'm there, they're here. Oh, good. Right? He's saying don't deceive yourself. You think that, doesn't matter how strong you are. If you think that, you've already fallen. Do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals. Third thing is be prepared, and this is especially for the youth, right? When it happens, don't what I mean by be prepared is think ahead of time that this is not something you want to try. Think ahead of time of your response. Don't wait till you're at some sort of event and someone comes in and shoves something in your face and you're put on the spot. And what do I do? You know, think ahead of time that you've already made a decision. Be prepared, and that makes things easier when you hit in the moment. Say no, I don't want this. I don't want to try it. I know why I don't want to try it, right? The fourth point is a bit like this one, is the devil uses stress, anxiety, and urgency to make you believe you have to make a quick decision. What do I mean by that? You know, sometimes when you get attacked by something very quickly or you get proposed something very quickly, and then there's this feeling in you that you have to make a decision now or you're going to lose something huge, and hurry up, decide, and there's that sense of like, I can't think about this, I just have to act. Sorry? Urgency, yeah. 99% of the time, that's from the devil, right? Does God work by freaking us out and throwing something in our face and being, decide now, quickly? No. And that's why a lot of times these types of things happens, right? Is you're thrown into a situation where someone's offering you something, and then right away you're like, oh, I don't want to look like an idiot. If I say no, they're going to think I'm a loser. If I this, that, I have to make a decision now. I have to do this now. And there's urgency. Urgency, walk away. And that's true even as adults, right? Is if you know, like the sales tactics, where they're like, if you don't sign the paper now, it'll go up 30% tomorrow, and then all that urgency is all about making you not think and take the wrong decision. Urgency is never a good reason to do anything. In fact, urgency, walk away. And the important thing is, you can never undo something you've done. You guys know what I mean by that? Is that once you've tried something, that's it. You've tried it. You could always not try something and decide to do it later. It's like you can always not sign that paper or that contract now, and you can sign it tomorrow. But once it's signed, it's signed. So don't let the urgency fool you into making a quick decision. And then the other part is the despair is from the devil, because oftentimes it's exactly what he does. Firstly, urgency, you're going to lose out. You do it, then it's, man, you're so bad. You did that. You're lost. That's it. Don't even bother going to church. How are you going to pray now? You did this, you did that. And it's like psychological warfare, right? It's first convincing you something is very minor to get you to do it. And then the second you do it, he flips the magnifying glass and he makes it look huge. Like it's unbeatable and that there's no help. Just stay where you are, do what you want. too late now. We've lost it all. Again, those two thoughts are they're contradictory but similar because they're all about moving you away from God. That's the end goal. That's how the two work, even though they're contradictory. This is from Elder Thaddeus. The Holy Fathers and the Saints always tell us, it is important to get up immediately after a fall and to keep on walking toward God. Even if we fall 100 times a day, it does not matter. We must get up and go on walking towards God without looking back. What has happened has happened. It is in the past. Just keep on going all the while asking for help from God. And then finally, last couple of slides, issues with stress and anxiety. So a lot of people will fall into addictions, especially when it comes to stress and anxiety. The reason I put this as well is because this is actually what happens very often with alcohol. Is a lot of people will start with alcohol in a very neutral setting. Their homes, their families, things like that. But they still kind of understand that it relieves anxiety, it relieves stress, it kind of gives you that feeling short term. The issue happens when something goes wrong in your life. When you enter a particularly difficult period where your normal coping mechanisms don't work anymore, and then you start being tempted to turn more and more to this thing that you've already experienced, which before didn't cause you a problem because your life was stable. But now, it's rocky. You guys get what I mean? And now it becomes more tempting to start overusing it and things like that. That's why you'll sometimes find people who drank socially, like 10 years, 15 years. And then they hit their mid-30s and something big happens. They lose a job, something happens in the family, a death, and they start turning more and more to alcohol because they've already gotten a kind of use from it. But it's when life gets hard that instead of turning to something else, they end up turning to that because it's easier, it's there, and it gives me the immediate relief. So, a bad coping mechanism, right? Oftentimes people will use drugs or substances to kind of deal with their stress and anxiety. So an important thing which we're going to talk about is building good coping mechanisms. And finally, the last point, which is the most important actually, is for someone who's actually addicted, is seek help. It is the most important thing. Remember the paralyzed man? It doesn't matter how paralyzed you are, as long as there's people around you to bring you to God, you're good. Seek help. Whether it's Abuna, so our Father of Confessions, servants, families, friends, medical, psychological, do what you need to get the help that you need to get. There's nothing that God cannot overcome. And even if you feel you can't do it, even if you feel you can't even go to God, paralyzed man, go to someone else who can help you get to God, right? So what are the good coping mechanisms that we want to use? Firstly and foremost, filling the void, prayer and Bible reading. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will hold you with my righteous right hand. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. If I fix this, if this becomes godlike, so many things follow. It's not about resisting temptation or resisting sin as much as it is becoming like God, becoming Christ. And that's very important, because if you spend your whole time concentrating on fighting something stronger than you, then you're going to lose. But if you spend your time concentrating on going to the person stronger than you, who's able to defeat everything, then you're always guaranteed victory. What are you concentrating on, right? Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The sacraments, take communion often, confess regularly, remove the guilt. Be open with your Father of Confession. Participate in church life. Koinonia, which is fellowship, fasting, worship. Why do I say these things? Do you notice that these things are also things that God told us to do, but they're also things that naturally give us dopamine? They're things that naturally fill us. They're things that are important for us as human beings. And it goes back to the first point we made. You are a person that is a body, spirit, and a soul. You have to work on all three, right? Which leads to physical activity, exercise, healthy sleep patterns, healthy nutrition, good friends and social time, right? Hobbies and balance in life. All these things are necessary. And all these things are necessary for a good spiritual life, and all these things are necessary to avoid falling into addiction, to get out of addiction, right? Because again, you need these things. You're a human being. These are things that are basic needs for human beings, right? And the last thing I'll leave you guys with is this. I thought it was very nice. It's from our Litany of the Sick, right? Again, let us give thanks to God, the Pantocrator, the Father of our Lord God and Savior Jesus Christ. We ask and entreat your goodness, O lover of mankind. Remember, O Lord, the sick among your people. And the deacon responds, pray for our fathers, the brethren, who are sick with any sickness, whether in this place or in any place, that Christ our God may grant us with them health and healing and forgive our sins. And the next part is the part that I really love. You have visited them, this is what the priest says, with mercies and compassions, heal them. Take away from them and from us every sickness and every malady, and the spirit of sickness chase away. Those who have long lain in malady, raise up and comfort. Those who are afflicted by unclean spirits, set them all free. Those who are in prisons, in dungeons, those who are in exile or captivity, or those that are held in bitter bondage, O Lord, set them all free and have mercy upon them. When he's talking about prisons and dungeons, exile and captivity, he doesn't just mean people that are physically in prison. He's talking about the people that are, even if it's prison is your own mind, right? Those that feel entrapped. Those who are exiled, they're away from the community and away from the people they love. Those who are captive. Those who are held in bitter bondage, not just tied up, it's bitter. It's the worm that doesn't leave you alone, the fire. O Lord, set them all free and have mercy on them. For you are he who loosens the bound and lifts up the hope. Okay? God is the one that does that. The hope of those who have no hope, and the help of those who have no help. Meaning, it doesn't matter what's going on in your life, and it doesn't matter if you see 1,000 people around you failing. He is the hope of those that have no hope, and he is the help of those who have no help. It's one of my favorite songs where it says, I can't remember which one it is, but where it says, 1,000 fall by my right, and 1,000 by my left, but the 91, thank you, but it won't touch you. Meaning, you could see everyone around you failing miserably, but God is, as long as you're with him, he's with you. He is faithful. He is faithful, right? The comfort of the faint-hearted and the harbor of those in the storm. All souls that are distressed or bound, grant them mercy, O Lord. Grant them rest, grant them refreshment, grant them grace, grant them help, grant them salvation, grant them the forgiveness of their sins and their iniquity. I like the rest, refreshment, and this is the life and love, having it more abundantly. You know, it's like, not only will I redeem you, but I will finally give you that thing that you couldn't find in the drug, which is rest. I'll finally give you the thing that you couldn't find in your addiction, which is refreshment and grace. As for us too, O Lord, the sicknesses of our souls heal, and those of our bodies cure. Again, soul, body, spirit. O you, the true physician of our souls and bodies, he heals all of us. The bishop of all flesh, visit us with your salvation. Amen. Thank you.
So thank you all for listening. We hope that you loved our topic. Just for the rest of the night, so we have games in front of the door. And to end the night, of course, we're going to end it with our prayer. And downstairs we have food. And we love to take a picture all together if it's possible. So thank you all.
Just take a picture. Okay.
Okay, just to be freed, before we forget, let us end this very beautiful gathering, saying, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread,